This project starts with a chess piece and introduces you to the basics of painting. In painting, you'll need a palette, a paintbrush, a cup with water, and a paper towel. You'll be using black and white paint for this. In art class, we use tubs of paint, so you'll need a separate palette knife for each color and only small amounts of paint. You can always get more. In your sketchbook, start by drawing a value scale and a larger rectangle next to it. We're going to start by mixing the lightest value. With paint, the darker color will always be stronger than the lighter color. So I'm taking some white and just a tiny amount of black to mix my lightest gray. Notice how my paintbrush still has a bit of darker gray in it, which I blend out while it's on the page. I'm carefully painting in the value right up to the edges with an even amount of paint on the whole square. For the next color, start in a new well and mix from scratch. You'll see why later. This one should have a little more black in it. It's nice to have that first value next to it to compare the two shades in the palette. Just a note, paint will always dry darker, so the color you see in your palette is lighter than how it will look when it's dry. With each value, I'm starting in a new well and adding a bit more of black than the last one. Mixing the paint thoroughly before putting it on the page, and I'm doing this step until I've painted all of the values on my page. Each one should be obviously darker than the last. When I'm done painting that section, I rinse out my brush in the water, scrubbing it against the bottom of the cup to get out any paint, and drying it off with paper towel. For this next part, I'm going to practice blending these values into one another while the paint is still wet. This is why I want all my colors pre-mixed. Acrylic paint dries fast, so these things help me blend it better. I'm starting with the lightest value and painting in the bottom, then working my way up. While this color is still wet on the page, I go and grab the next value from my palette. I'm moving my paintbrush back and forth in the same direction across the area. I'm moving my way up the page so that every edge of paint I work with is always wet and it's easy to blend into the next color. Once you've done this consistently with your value scale, you are ready to jump into the next step, which is to paint your background in the same way.